Hello and welcome to the Monster Pod presented by The Lines, TheLines.com. Matt Brown, Mo Nuwwarah. We are coming to you with the Divisional Round 4 games to decide who's going to play for the conference championships. And Mo, we're going to talk through kind of the scenarios of all of these, hopefully lead you guys to some bets out there. Pretty tough week, in my opinion, when it comes down to it. So we'll do the very best that we can to talk through all of these. So kick things off here. Houston Texans on the road at the Kansas City Chiefs. This is 8.5 out there. There are a couple of 8s that have popped now, actually. So this thing got as high as 9.5, Mo. We've seen some people come in on Houston, 41.5, the prevailing total out there. Kansas City, 2 weeks to prepare for this game. And then Houston, look, convincing win, but, on the scoreboard. But man, I don't know. You rewatched that game, and because I was like, what did I miss in this thing? I rewatched it, and I'm like, I don't really know if I missed anything. It just kind of like the game was what it was. What do you think here as Houston heads to Kansas City?
Yeah, I thought Houston was still pretty sloppy.
Yeah.
Pretty poor on offense generally. The defense obviously played very well, but can they do that again on the road against a better offense here and a much better quarterback? I'm skeptical, but I'm also skeptical that the Chiefs can cover double digits here. So nothing for me, I don't think, in the major markets. I think it's overall a good matchup for the Chiefs. I mean, they get Jalen Watson back. I think that's pretty big. A lot of people probably don't even know who that is.
Right.
He's like the Chiefs CB2, but when he's getting replaced by literal replacement level guys, which is pretty much what happened. Like when you look back at the Bills game, they just picked on this guy Najee Johnson over and over and over. And that game and a couple others were similar, where just these spots that Jalen Watson left are getting picked on, and now that he's back, I think that's big for the Chiefs.
So you're close to up there. We're going to be getting like low to mid 20s. It doesn't look like the wind's going to be terrible, though there will be some wind out there, but no precipitation or anything like that. I mean, Mo, these guys are pros. I get all that. Houston does play in a dome. They are a air quote warm weather team heading outdoors to Kansas City and all of that. I mean, does that at all kind of play into what you're thinking too?
Yeah, medium strength winds, low temperatures also makes me a bit to expect that this is a low scoring game. I think, the market definitely does. We've seen it, I think 42.5 and just get kind of inch down to 41.5 and then finally meet some resistance there. I think that's right. All the Texans really have left is Nico Collins. I mean, yeah, Joe Mixon had a good year, but this Chiefs run defense has been elite. They shut Mixon down the first time these teams played. I don't think that should really be close to enough for this Houston offense. I mean, he's got a tough matchup with Trent McDuffie, but these bigger guys have given Trent McDuffie some problems. Collins gave him some problems the first time they played. I think it's going to be a lot of dinking and dunking from the Chiefs, too. That's the other thing. It's like, this is going to be a really low A-dot game from the Chiefs, I think. It's been like that all year. Mahomes is, I think, third from the bottom in the A-dot. And you look at this game, I mean, these Texans corners are really, really tough to beat deep. So I don't think the Chiefs are really going to try that. I think they're just going to try to matriculate, and we are going to see some longer drives in this game. I think another thing that hurts Houston in this game, I mean, this sounds ridiculous, but like even Robert Woods is hurt. I mean, they're scraping the bottom of the barrel. These are replacement level receivers at this point. We saw that last week. Multiple drops. I mean, John Mechie is, great story, but he's not. Yeah. He's not the guy you want on the field in these spots. And I think a big problem for Houston is also that they're very focused on, like, a lot of their strength is up front on defense, and the Chiefs' O-line has been much better since Joe Thuney moved to left tackle. I think they just announced today he is going to be back at left tackle, even though DJ Humphries is available. And Patrick Mahomes, last time these teams played, 47 dropbacks. He got sacked once. So yeah. I just think that just shows you how he can mitigate that strength for this Houston defense.
Biggest coaching mismatch in the playoffs, right? By far. I understand nobody likes Sirianni, and certainly Sean McVay and his staff showed what geniuses they are last week. We'll get to that game in a little bit, but Andy Reid and his staff against what's going on in Houston. It's got to be, right?
Yeah, multiple weeks to prepare too. That's obviously scary. Everybody knows Andy Reid's record with extra time to prepare. So a lot of stuff lining up Chiefs, but I just can't get there on a bet because it's just a couple things. Low scoring game, big line. And then another thing, you just look back. These teams played not that long ago. Less than a month ago, the Chiefs were -3.5, -4 at home. So how did we get up to -8.5? Yeah, was that line not long enough? Probably, but I don't know if the difference is this big.
I look at this Chiefs team, and I guess it's a deal where I guess I'll buy into the narrative here of what Andy Reid does throughout the course of the season and then what he does when he gets to the playoffs just being completely different. I used to kind of scoff at that, Mo, where it's like, he would save the good plays or he just did all the different stuff. And then you see how this team really does take it to the next level in the playoffs. And I'm kind of starting to come around on this whole deal of Andy Reid cares about winning games in the regular season, but he doesn't care about being flashy. He doesn't care about what the score is. He just wants to win the games and then get to the playoffs. And then that's when he really turns things up. And I look at Kelsey sitting here at 5.5 receptions, right? And I get it. He's only averaging about 5 catches a game on the year. But I don't know if some of that isn't load management for a dude that's getting up there in age and is such an important part of the offense when it does come down to the stretch time. I don't know how Kelsey doesn't get 9 or 10 targets in this game. And a lot of his targets are high percentage catches as it is anyway. And so if he's getting the 9 or 10 targets I think he's probably going to get, I can't keep myself off the over 5.5 catches. So again, like I said, I might be a sucker. I might be buying into the narrative here, but I don't know how he's not yet again another major part of this playoff push, a high percentage target guy as it is anyway. And him and Mahomes just with that weird deal when Mahomes does actually get flushed from the pocket and just how he's able to find himself and get open for all of that. And so I played me some Kelsey over 5.5 receptions.
Listen, you're preaching to the choir on Kelsey as far as load management goes. I've been saying the Chiefs need to start managing his workload for 3 years now. So, we saw what happened last year in the playoffs. Obviously, performed much better than he did in the regular season. I looked over anytime touchdown stuff for this game too. Honestly, if I was going to make one bet in this game, it would probably be Kelsey anytime. It's I think you can get plus 160. I looked up some stuff on the way Houston played against the Chargers, and basically, so Ladd McConkey obviously was the only thing positive that happened for the Chargers offense in that entire game. He had, I think, 9 for 197, which was absolutely outrageous, and he lines up in the slot, I think, more than 50% of the time for the season. And I actually looked the last time the Chiefs played a serious game. I can't recall if it was this Texans game or maybe the week after, but Travis Kelce was tied for first on the team in slot snaps. So they lined him up in the slot a ton. I think if they're in any sort of pinch or, red zone, third down, big spots, I think they might just line Kelsey up in the slot again because that looks like that's where you want to attack this Texans defense.
And to kind of just further this and not to just beat this home, but again, if you're trying to make bets in this game, Patrick Mahomes just attacked the middle of the field all season long, right? He 282 attempts between the hashes over the course of the season, third most amongst all quarterbacks in the NFL. And while Houston, as you said, is really good on the outside, is really good wherever, they actually allowed the 10th most yards over the middle, and so it's just they're probably okay with playing defense that way, right? Which is just hey, we're not going to allow you the big plays on the outside, and if you want to kind of keep it in the middle of these guys and stuff, we'll allow the little smaller stuff. But again, that just plays into this whole Kelsey stuff that we're talking about, right? Which is if Mahomes, and we know Mahomes is the dude that learned 3 years ago, I'm just going to take what people give me. You know, like it was the only knock against Mahomes in his whole career was defenses were like, oh, we're going to make you get out of your comfort zone, and this is the stuff you don't want to do. And it took him all of half a season to adjust to like, oh, okay, y'all want to give me this, I'll just take this, and I'll just take this, and I'll take this, and we'll just march down the field as opposed to taking these big chunk plays and stuff. And so I think everything just comes up Kelsey here. I think he has a massive, massive, massive game in this one. So I love Kelsey. I have ladders on this as well. The over 5.5. I played over 6.5. I played over 7.5. I have yardage and things like that. And I'm going to go ahead, just because you said it, since I'm all in on Kelsey as it is anyway, and throw a damn anytime touchdown in there as well. Because I just think that this is everything just comes up Kelsey in here with the way that even with the way the Texans play defense.
I mean, when you're talking about just like market value too, I mean, Kelsey was a guy who spent most of the year at like plus 120. It's probably started the year like minus 105 in a lot of these games. So, I mean, the price has gotten to where it's reflective of how he has played in the past.
Yeah.
But it's like you said, I don't know how well that projects how he's going to play in the future.
If there is only one knock on this Houston defense, once you get into the red zone, it's hard to get in the red zone. So once you get in the red zone, they allow touchdowns. Like they just like it's like 30th in the NFL in red zone touchdown rate allowed. Like it's tough to get there on them. But like once you do, you can score touchdowns on them. So again, another thing that just points Travis Kelce for me. Also, don't hate a teaser leg here. I think Kansas City wins this game a very, very, very high percentage of the time. I understand if you don't want to lay 8.5 out there, guys. Like I said, there's 8s available too. So you could get that thing down under 2.5 without even taking the full 6 points in a teaser, and I don't hate that angle at all here in that one either. The Washington Commanders on the road at the Detroit Lions. This thing all the way up to 55.5 on the total. 9.5 is the market. High 8.5 is the market. Low on Detroit at home. They get that first round bye, get to heal up a little bit, get to look at their opponents and watch them and study them, Mo. But, you know, everybody's expecting a track meet here in this one, obviously, with this total being as high as it is, though it has been ticked down at least a half a point there off that opening at 56. And we see a little bit of love for Washington to get it off of the 10, but still some buyback here on Detroit when this thing got down to 8.5 again, gets it immediately bought back up to the 9.5s out there. How do you see Washington and Detroit?
I like Washington. This is a one I made. I don't like Washington on the regular line. So I know I was kind of eyeing it, seeing if it would get to 10, but like it didn't. So whatever. It's not that big of a deal. Because I actually like the alts. I mean, more so, I guess if it got to 10, I would get better prices on the alts. But I took Washington plus 3.5, plus 215 at FanDuel, plus 7.5, plus 106. A lot of variance in this game. 2 high-powered offenses, 2 very beatable defenses, I think. And then you got just 2 coaches that are going to go for every 4th and short, and probably some 4th and mediums as well. So. I mean, this game could honestly just come down to a handful of plays. I definitely think it's rightful that the total is so high. Everything's pointing that way for me. I can't see too many scenarios where Washington is getting stops in this game. I mean, they just like don't have a good defense statistically, and then matchup-wise, this isn't great for them. You have a Lions offense where Jared Goff, he gains like 50 points of passer rating against man defense. Like he's like 145 passer rating against man this year, which is kind of wild. And Washington plays a fair amount of man. I think they're like in the middle of the pack. So that's not great. They like to blitz. According to PFF's grading, Jared Goff was better when blitzed this year. Probably a function of the O-line picking up most of those blitzes. I like parlaying Washington with the over because of that. Like, I just don't see like a scenario where like they're not going to cover, 27-20. Like, I think it's going to be a very high scoring game. And I think Detroit team total over makes some sense if you want to be a nit, but I like being a little more aggressive and parlaying Washington with the over because I think they can keep up, man. I mean, Jaden Daniels is not Sam Darnold. He is very good, and he is a two-dimensional player, and you have a Lions defense that allowed an average of 41 points to the last 3 good offenses they faced that were not quarterbacked by Sam Darnold. So that was Green Bay, Buffalo, and San Francisco. I mean, yeah, Washington parlayed with the over makes sense. If you want to get really crazy, which I did, I think a fun SGP for this game is Detroit over its team total, or one of the lower kind of team totals. I think I did 31.5. I think it's like minus 120 on DK. You can take that and go with Washington money line, and that's like 25-1. So I think that's good.
Yeah, there's a couple other. You're like, if you're SGPing here, if you like points, if you whatever. I played it before the juice got crazy. That's why I'm saying more now, including it in a SGP as opposed to a sole bet. But like, they open the over under punts, Mo, on this at 6.5 in this game. Like, again, unless things go drastically wrong, there's not going to be 7 punts in this game. I mean, like you just mentioned, these dudes just go for it on 4th down all the time, as it is anyway. And they're just they're efficient offenses. They just move the ball and they go and they score. It's juices all the way out to minus 155 now. That's not like the craziest thing in the whole world. If you love a bet, like I actually love this bet, but if your bankroll doesn't really, account for something like that, a minus 155 bet, I think including in a same game parlay that includes points being scored, because you can't punt 7 times and have a whole bunch of points being scored. That's just not going to work. So I think that's something you can throw in there as well.
Yeah, I think another one you could look for maybe is like under field goals, under field goal attempts, under field goals made. I mean, these guys are not going to kick field goals unless it's 4th and 15 or whatever. Like, especially
and the Washington kicker isn't good anyway. Like, he's not any good anyway.
And once the ball gets rolling too, like once you are sense that you're in a game where the other team is going to keep scoring touchdowns, it further incentivizes you not to kick field goals. So that just all plays into it.
I do wonder a little bit about if we're talking props and from the receiver standpoint on Detroit. I mean, we saw it last week. Marshawn Lattimore just got absolutely roasted by Mike Evans, right? And so if you're Detroit, is there a world that exists? And I'm not saying this in hyperbole. I'm being dead serious. If you watch that game, is there not a world where if you're Jared Goff, you almost target Lattimore? I mean, like Evans won every single route against him, and the ones he didn't actually catch the ball, he got interfered with. I mean, like he got pass interfered. I don't know if there's not a world where Goff is looking, and if Lattimore is actually going to cover one of these guys, I can't imagine Washington after last week would do that again. But if they did, I mean, Jesus Christ, like if it's Jamison Williams, like Jamison Williams could have 200 yards in this game.
That was the one anytime touchdown I kind of liked on the Lions side is Jameson. Yeah. You can get him around plus 130, even close to plus 140. And just the fact that, these Lions corners probably can't run with him. And everyone else on Detroit has a crazy price.
Yeah, right.
Amon-Ra, Montgomery, and Jameer are like all somewhere between minus 115 and minus 215, I think, or something. I mean, Jameer finally isn't minus 300, so that's an interesting angle. If you can try to figure out what they're going to do with their running backs, but then Montgomery's still minus 150, so I don't know what's going to happen there. That's
my next question to you, and like I know all we can do is kind of speculate, but so the injury happens with Montgomery, and we hear he's out for the season. It's like he's done for the year, and here it is 3 weeks later, and the dude's going to play. Are you just going under the assumption that, like, hell, if they're going to play him, we just have to assume he's healthy? Or are you kind of taking this like baby steps? Because there's a market high of 47.5 rushing yards on David Montgomery, right? Which is, if you're averaging 4 yards a clip or a little over 4 yards a clip, he's going to have to get 10 carries in this game to get to that number. How do you even view this Montgomery situation?
I don't know what to think. I mean, they list him as a full participant, and then they took him all the way off the practice report. So they're basically just saying he's ready to rock, but you know how teams can be with this stuff. Yeah. I mean, they might just want, Washington to be preparing for him, and then he plays 8 snaps or something. That's the nice thing about some of these props, though. If you take the alt unders or whatever, if he even plays, then it automatically has action. But I don't know. I feel like if he gets any carries, it's probably going to be at least like 8, and obviously 47 is pretty low. Like it's probably 20 yards lower than most of his numbers in the regular season. So they're already baking in something, but it's kind of a halfway number. Like it's not a number that would reflect obviously a much lower role, but it's also not reflecting his regular role. So they're anticipating something in between.
Passing yards, market low on Jaden Daniels, 234.5. I couldn't help but play the over on this. I do believe that these offenses are going to be able to move the ball. I do believe that we're going to see some success through the air for these teams. 235 passing yards for Jaden Daniels in a game that I kind of still believe is going to be a shootout. I know that I'm not buying into what to the hype of anything. I honestly just believe you have two really good offenses that are coming in against two defenses that can be had. And at 235 with a very inefficient rush offense as it is anyway outside of Jaden Daniels. I mean, like, if you watch, all you had to do was watch last week. I mean, like, Brian Robinson somehow in the middle of the season just became dust. Like, he just fell off of a cliff, can't do anything. And then Austin Eckler, 700 years old, out there trying to run the ball as well. They just can't do anything on the ground now. And so with that, I think he's going to throw the ball, and it might, whether that's because they're in a shootout mode or maybe they're down 2 scores and he just has to throw the ball one way or another. I don't know. I think 234 just a little bit too low for me, so ended up with a play on Daniels over on the passing side of things.
Yeah, that seems fine. I mean, like you said, any game script basically could include that. It's not dependent on any kind of game state, so I like making bets like that when it doesn't need things to go a certain way to come home. And like I said, I do think no matter what happens in this game, I think Detroit's going to be scoring and moving the ball. So in that case, Washington is going to be either playing catch up or keeping up. And I think either way, he probably goes over that number.
If you like Detroit in this game, guys, it is 8.5 at DraftKings. That's also Kansas City, 8.5 as well. So you could, in fact, make a teaser leg out of that to get it under 2.5 on both sides there. So that is where the market low is, this one over at DraftKings. So fun game. Can't wait to watch it. Going to be super, super awesome there on Saturday evening. The Rams and the Eagles kicking things off here on Sunday. Eagles sitting 6 in the market right now. 6.5, but it's a soft 6.5. So imagine this thing will tick back and forth between 6.5 in favor of the Eagles. A total of 43.5 in this one, pretty much prevailing. Mo, look, we see a masterclass last week by Sean McVay in this Rams offense. The defense out of nowhere was getting pressure on the quarterback. They had not done it all year long, and then out of nowhere, just shot out of a cannon. Really great game plan by them heading into that game last week. I could not have been more wrong in that game. But here's the Eagles coming off of a bye of their own. We're heading up here. We should mention that this is also a weather game. It looks like there's going to be snow on the field in Philadelphia. It looks like we're going to get kind of the sustained 10-mile-an-hour winds with the gusts that could be in that 15 to 20. If it is snowing, we don't really worry about snow that much, but if the snow's blowing sideways and stuff, then it's kind of a different story with all that. But at the very least, extremely cold in this one. We do have a West Coast dome team heading over to Philly for this. What do you say? What do you see here in Rams and Eagles?
Yeah, reasons to be skeptical of both offenses, I think.
Yeah.
Like you said, Matt Stafford outdoors in the cold makes me nervous. But at the same time, I look at this game and I just honestly think this entire game comes down to what Jalen Hurts gives the Eagles. I mean, if he's anything like he looked last week, like basically if that was just a 1-week post-concussion haze and he's snapped out of that, then yeah, the Eagles are probably going to be fine because last time these two teams played, the Rams couldn't stop the run. Saquon Barkley went for 255 yards. Well, it's a lot easier to stop the run if you don't respect the other team's passing game. And if Jalen Hurts plays like he did last week, they don't have to respect anything this Eagles passing attack is bringing to the table. So at that point, I think they can just load the box and dare Jalen Hurts to do something. And last week, it didn't look like he could do it. So if that's the case again, I like Rams money line quite a bit. I'm happy with my 30-1 future to win the NFC because this is a good matchup for LA's offense, I think. I mean, that's not why they lost this game last time these teams played. They lost because they let Saquon go for 255.
Can't let that happen again.
Right.
Yes.
Banging analysis here. But yeah, I like the Rams at 6.5 generally. I would bet that if I wasn't already invested in the money line, I think. Because like I said, I think it's a good matchup for this offense. I mean, Philly has not a great pressure rate. I mean, we know that's a stylistic thing. This is the way Vic Fangio wants to play defense.
Yeah.
They don't want to blitz. They want to sit back in their zone. They want to keep everything in front of them. They want to play light boxes. That's another thing, too. The Rams, their rushing game plays into that weakness a bit because this isn't an explosive running attack, but it's a high success rate running attack. Like, Kyren Williams isn't going to get you for 50 yards, but he's going to get you for 5 yards pretty often. So that helps them in this game against these light boxes. And I already quoted the Matt Stafford under pressure grading last week. It's horrible, and he's elite if you don't pressure him. So this is just like either Philly has to change what they do or they're probably going to, like, I guess it's just either they have to change what they want to do, which isn't great because usually you want to be running the stuff you're best at, or they're going to get hit with a lot of passing by Matt Stafford because I think he can make the throws basically that Jordan Love was missing some layering throws over the first level of the defense last week. Matt Stafford's been doing this forever, man. We know he can do that, but we also know he can't move if you put any pressure on him. So we'll see how that goes for LA's offense. I like that side of the ball for them. I just don't know what's going to happen on the other end of the ball because I don't know if Jalen Hurts is brain scrambled mess or if he's going to be fine.
Yeah, I am. This game does fascinate me as to how it's mainly the fascination becomes from the defenses in this game. Like, what is Fangio going to do? So you watched that game last week, and it was basically just Stafford to Puka Nacua at will, right? Now, your corners are better. Like, your defense is better. Your coverage unit is better. Do you just say we're just going to play them straight up like we have all year? Or is it's almost, Mo, weirdly, like, I don't know if Cooper Kupp's lost a step. I don't know if he's fallen out of favor with Matt Stafford. I don't know if these defenses, which I haven't, I don't have the keen eye enough to see if they're like weirdly trying to eliminate him instead of Puka Nacua, even though Nacua is obviously the number one option now at this point. But what they do, you can't just like have the 700 completions to Nacua, just easy pitch and catch completions over and over and over again. So how do they combat that? And then on the other side with the Rams defense, I don't typically love this stat of this whole like yards before contact thing unless it's a back like Saquon Barkley that if you don't touch him, then when he has open field, then it's just kind of like he's the dude that can really and truly just break one for 30 and 40 and 50 yards like nobody's business. And so they were like down 28th in the league in yards before contact was this Rams run defense against running backs. And so do they make a big time focus on just, okay, look, Saquon's not going to beat us. If Hurts can beat us through the air after looking like garbage last week, then so be it. So I'm really fascinated just on the both defenses side of things as to how they approach going after these other teams' strengths.
Yeah, I mean, I think Cooper Kupp's lost a couple of steps, to be honest. But the Rams probably still have enough to threaten this Eagles defense. I'm curious to see if they want to play more heavy boxes. I mean, Kyren Williams, like I said, he's not making you lose any sleep, but he gets yards. And this is a good schematic rushing attack, so he's got that going for him. Overall, I think the Rams got a little bit overwhelmed in the trenches by this Eagles team last time, but again, they could be sending a lot more bodies to the box this time if they don't think Jalen Hurts is going to beat them. And, I mean, it was crazy what happened last week. Like, I've never seen the Eagles play like that. I mean, anything that was, like, more than 3rd and 7, they were just, like, running the ball because they didn't even trust Jalen Hurts. I think that was a big, big concern. When the coaching staff doesn't trust Jalen Hurts, I feel like they know that he's not close to 100%. So either that's got to get shored up or – because that's not going to work against better teams, you know. And do the Rams qualify? I mean, maybe they might be better than the Packers at this point. The Packers did not have a very good final few games, so obviously they lost a lot of bodies as well, so that contributed to it.
So I will say this, and I think that this is, again, I know you guys hate when we do this on the pod, but the whole, hey, watch the first couple of drives and then at live bet, like in-game bet, but every site now allows for the in-game props, and like Saquon's line is up at 111.5. And again, I know last time it was over this, he still blew past it, and I understand. But if they decide to make the effort to load the box and just say like, okay, Jalen Hurts, you're going to have to do what you have to do, and it is what it is. So there's a correlated like in-game play here, the under on Barkley and then the over on Hurts, if you think that they're going to have success doing that at all. Hurts' passing props only 199.5 yards, like not even 200 yards in the game, and so it's if the Rams defense kind of shows you their hand, that it's like, all right, we are selling out to stop the run. Hurts, you do whatever you can do through the air. If you see through the first drive that, maybe he looks a little bit better, maybe he just did need to shake off some rust or something like that, there could be like kind of a correlated under on Barkley, over on Hurts in the game. But that's kind of how, for me, that I'm dealing with it. I'm like you. I lean more towards taking the points with the Rams, but I think there is a world that exists that the Eagles just eagle them. Like that game last week. It's like they should have, in theory, the way they played, you should have lost them. It's like they didn't play good, and still they were just, the defense is so good and whatever, and Saquon's so good that they just kind of eagled their way to a victory. And that's the thing that keeps like sitting here on my shoulder, Mo. It's like you're going to take the points and they're going to win 17-10 or so, something stupid like that. It's going to be like this like terrible deal where you lose by a hook.
Well, that's what makes me wonder if under 44 is the play.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's kind of low given the way these offenses can be at times, but again, cold game outdoors, West Coast team, quarterback that has lost a lot of effectiveness outdoors in the last couple of years, I think. I thought he was pretty poor in a lot of the outdoor games this year. So that's a factor for me. And then just, like I said, skeptical of Jalen Hurts after how he looked last week. It's a big leap from how Jalen Hurts looked last week to how a playoff winning quarterback that's going to be pushing you past your team total is going to have to look. So I kind of lean to the under 44, but again, it's not that high of a number given the quality of these offenses. So there's that.
Tough handicap, guys. And again, just, weird things happen between the time we record this and actual kickoff. Certainly this is, on Sunday. So keep an eye on that weather report. Maybe it's worse than expected. Maybe it's better than expected as well. I mean, weather is weather and it does change. So keep an eye on that. Did they save the best for last? Our last game of the divisional round is going to be the Baltimore Ravens heading on the road to the Buffalo Bills. Matt Brown, Mo Nuwwarah, brought to you here by TheLines.com. We are sitting flip favorite situation, but a 1-point move through zero doesn't really do all that much. But again, it was started out Buffalo -1, 1.5. Now we're seeing Baltimore -1, 1.5. 51.5 is our total here in this one. As far as the weather goes here, we are again absolutely frigid temperatures outside in Buffalo. It is going to be ridiculously cold. It is the feels like temperature is certainly going to be down close to zero. I'm sure you're going to hear all of that with the way that things go. Mo, for me, typically we worry about winds. Typically we worry about like super heavy precipitation and all of that, though. Whenever temperatures get this low, we have seen at least a little bit of a correlation in lower scoring games just because it is the ball's hard. You're like a little bit more hesitant to kick, field goals and things and do different stuff like that. And so we have at least seen scoring get impacted just a little bit here in this one. But what do you think? I mean, I can't wait to watch this game. I'm sure you can't either. But what do you think from a handicapping perspective?
I fired the under in this one. Temperature is a big reason why. Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's going to be really cold, like single-digit temps. Lamar Jackson, I don't know if I don't have anything to back myself up on this. I just feel like he hates playing in the cold based on the fact that he's usually dressed in a wetsuit under his body armor out there. So I think there is going to be a lot of running by both teams. I think both teams want to run the ball. you have a Bills team that has pounded the rock all year. You have a Ravens team that, I mean, Derrick Henry ran for 199 yards last time these two teams played. Like, they just lost their season last year, partially because for some ridiculous reason, Todd Monken decided to attack Kansas City through the air. And then once they got down, then they had to keep throwing the ball, and it was just a disaster. So if he's learned anything at all from that, I'm guessing he's going to come out and pound the rock against the team he ran for 250 yards on last time. Mm-hmm. So I think we're going to see some longer drives by both teams. Obviously, I'm terrified to bet an under with these two quarterbacks, but it's still 51.5. Like, that's a big number. So hesitantly, I did take under 51.5 here.
So I know we were sitting here early on in the season and we were like, okay, here's this Ravens defense, can't run against them, so you just pass and like you do all of that. And then you go from like week 10 and they are actually the number 1 defense in the NFL in drop back EPA allowed, and so you're like, wait a minute, like what? This team is like, now they're good against the pass. They figured something out over the course of the season. And so I'm with you. Like, I think that there's just going to be, given the weather conditions, given everything that goes on with this, given the fact that the Ravens have become a pretty good team against the pass and there isn't really a true number. I know it hasn't really mattered for Josh Allen on this season, but he didn't have a true number 1, doesn't really have like that very first go-to option. I think his go-to option is going to be him and James Cook, and running the ball and taking carries. And so Josh Allen's carry number is sitting at 8.5. I'm being dead serious when I say this. Like, I would be floored if Josh Allen doesn't have double-digit carries in this game. I mean, I would literally be absolutely floored if he doesn't get double-digit carries. There's always the designed runs that happen anyway. He is not afraid to take off. If you get inside the 2-yard line, he calls his own number 2 as it is, so you get those kind of carries in all of this. 8.5 to me, given this team that he's up against, given the scenario in the playoffs that he's up against here and these weather conditions, like I said, I would be blown away if he does not have double-digit carries in this game.
Yeah, we know quarterbacks run the ball more in the playoffs because they don't have to worry about preserving their bodies for the 17-game regular season grind. That is a thing. So I could absolutely see that. And the carries are probably going to work. Same as they're probably going to work on the Ravens end.
Right.
But again, running the ball is not how you get past a 51.5 total, even if the runs are working. That means the clock will be moving. That means less 20-plus yard gains. And then when you look at both of these two teams, neither one of them are like among the slowest teams in the league, but they're both below the median in pace. So two teams that don't play very fast, two teams that like to run the ball. 51.5 just seems really high to me.
There's a pretty high correlation, too, if you go and you look in the close games that they played this year and Josh Allen rush attempts, and you go and you see 11 rush attempts against Detroit in the 48-42 game, 10 rush attempts against the Rams in the 42-44 game, 12 rush attempts against Kansas City in that 30-21 game. Like you see in the closer games that, again, this thing is lined at 1. In the closer games, Josh Allen just runs more. He tries to take it into his own hands. And so, again, for me, hell, he ran 8 times last week in a 31-7 game. It's in, because you said it's the playoffs. I mean, it's just a different animal with all of this. And so I love that one a ton. One of the first things I threw into the account, I think that correlates very well also with the under, like you said, 51.5. Could this game, is there a world that exists that this thing is a shootout? I guess. All of the ways that I kind of go in and say, like, it doesn't get there for me.
Feels like it should be a chess match, right?
Yeah.
When you just look at the way, I mean, it's such a big game for both sides, too. I mean, it's a legacy game for both of these quarterbacks. I mean, it's two guys who need big wins, man. I mean, Patrick Mahomes can lose to either one of these guys next week, and it's not a big deal. He has multiple Super Bowls already. These guys need these W's, and one of them is going down in round 2, and that makes for some pretty it's gripping stuff for us,
Yeah.
but it's nervous stuff for them, I think. So I think nobody's going to want to make a big mistake. You have two quarterbacks who have been extremely turnover averse this year. Lamar Jackson was number 1 in PFF's turnover-worthy play, lowest percent. Josh Allen obviously has cleaned up a lot of his turnover issues, so most likely we're not going to be looking at a lot of short fields. So even if the offenses are having success, I think it's going to be longer drives.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's under for me, tons of rushing, tons of things like that. And listen, it might not be the most exciting game from a scoreboard perspective, but I think, like you said, the chess match is going to be fascinating to see what these dudes do against each other. Cannot wait to watch this one. Guys, again, reminder, everything we do, absolutely free. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button down below. Give us a thumbs up. Let us know how you are going to play this game. We got a Discord, upper right-hand corner at TheLines.com, where you can go in and chat with everybody playing this game as well. For Mo, I am Matt. Good luck on all your Ravens and Bills bets.